Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gaming Daddy channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So I have a few pertinent questions, but I think at the end of the day, you could just boil it down to one question anyways. How Ubisoft, in terms of Massive and Red Storm, how they're going to go about their release of their Division content. So we know that Ubisoft Red Storm is working on the Division Heartland. Massive has claimed to be supervising some other content for the Division 2, which is going to be coming somewhere in I don't know when. Honestly, nobody knows when, but there's a calendar date. There are all kinds of clues that will help you kind of realize that at some point the content's got to show up. I mean, and then there's also money. So if anybody's like, well, I don't believe content's going to come, it's okay. You can believe that, but trust me, if this company wants to continue to make money, which is what they're here, you'll see content just show up. You'll be so shocked. And that question is very simple. How are they going to go about, bringing this content in terms of marketing, community participation, and kind of like, the strategies that they've used in the past in terms of bringing content to their community members. Now, what I mean by this is in regard to marketing. This is a very big deal to these companies. You see, they use different marketing tactics. They'll use kind of like the official channels like, IGN and all that stuff. But one thing that the Division community has kind of gotten really used to is that organic exposure that they actually bring with their content. And this is something that's been there for a long time. They sold so well with the Division 1 that Ubisoft decided to allow for Massive to just relate to the community in a very different way. We had ETFs and all that stuff. This is not something that we've seen in many other games. I mean, this is something where if anything like an ETF has ever been done in, say, the context of Destiny, Bungie usually does some stuff like that with its content creators, not necessarily just other members of the community by and large. So in the case of Massive, they did the ETF. It had everybody in it. Had content creators, had non-content creators, had just regular players within the community that got selected to, travel to Malmo, Sweden. In one case, even they even had people travel to the, another studio in the UK. That's a sister studio, I think Ubisoft Reflections or so. Now, you go back and you think about this as well. You come back and ask the question and say, hey, what has Red Storm done? I mean, I remember Red Storm had the issue of leaks with the Division Heartland. The Heartland thing came out and they had people leaking stuff left and right, even though people had signed confidential agreements. And so, this is a risk that they probably knew about when it came to the Heartland thing, and they still went ahead and took that risk. I guess the question is if there's a subsequent alpha or test, I wonder if they're going to be, trusting of people to keep their confidentiality agreements down the road. But it still brings it down to, how are they going to go? What strategy are they going to use in terms of their organic marketing? I know they're going to be using, like I said, the big old channels, IGN and, the games, news, websites, and avenues. But within the community, I wonder how they're going to play it. They have so many tools at their behest, but I'm still curious in my mind because depending on the kind of content too that's going to be coming with the Division in terms of Division 2, I don't know if it's something where they're going to take a splice and put on, say, a PTS. If they're going to be making gear changes, that's another very big question, because if they're going to be making gear changes, how are they going to go about doing this? Because whatever the team capacity has been that's been working on this, we don't know if that team capacity has a lot of Q&A time built into it. Or, basically one thing about the Division is, we're the de facto QA people, us in the community folks. I mean, let's not be fooled. Yes, sure, they may have QA people, and I'm certain they do, that test a lot of the aspects of the game, because if you didn't have QA people in your studio, you would not be able to play the game. That's just for sure. Now, certainly because of the complexities of the Division itself with gear, weapons, scenarios that you probably couldn't even think about because of all the different things that are just jumbled into this game, we in the player community get to see a lot more things than the QA people could ever see. So I wonder if there's going to be something like a PTS, or there's something that's going to be like a thing where they just, say, no, there's not going to be any PTS. We're just going to have you guys jump in there and play, this new content. If it's paid, then that removes the whole PTS thing from the equation in a sense, because you don't want to have somebody playing the content before the other people who may pay for it. But again, that's still not a reason for them not to do it. They've done this before, even with paid content, even though people on console were like, well, it doesn't make any sense if, somebody else plays the content before I do in a PTS setting. But again, if the content's not receiving feedback from the community, then the question is, you're probably going to end up with content that, has some busted bugs in there. So there's just so many questions with this new content that, with all of this time passed, you really wonder how they're going to bring it all together. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm asking this question in terms of Division 2 and even in terms of Heartland. Like I said, with the leaks from Heartland, you really want to go back and ask yourself, is Red Storm going to be trusting enough, or are they going to just maybe pick a very smaller pool of gamers or a smaller pool of agents to, check out whatever this Heartland game might be in the future in terms of, the progress that they're making and all of those things. And so these are very important questions that I think people here in the community, we need to start asking, because when the content starts to get closer and closer, one thing that is probably not going to be in the best interest of the game, and this is in general, is the possibility that they actually go ahead and release the game with very minimal community input as things are actually being progressed. Now, if the content coming to the Division 2 is free content, then I see no problems with the PTS. In fact, I think a PTS might work to be able to kind of catch and clip, any potential issues if it's free content. I don't see any problem with that. If it's paid content, then it really has to be something where that content will probably have, in my opinion anyways, some measure of, I would say, lightness to it in terms of how they manipulate and tweak or touch any of the pre-existing infrastructure in terms of gear sets and brand sets. I think those things need to be very light in terms of, how they deal with that. If they want to make an overhaul, then my hope is that they have enough people already making those changes and actually testing a lot of those things, which is also a really big, huge enterprise on its own, but it's not without possibility. They've done these before. They did it in Warlords of New York. I don't know if everybody would agree that it landed the very best way, but I think it was something that was quite manageable and useful nonetheless. So these are questions that I feel like, here in the community, we ought to keep asking. And I wanted to go ahead and just make a video saying, hey man, how are they going to pull this off? What are they going to, come up with, and how are they going to get the community involved in the entirety of the process? So that's pretty much what I wanted to just go ahead and, throw out there with, to everyone here in the community. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments section. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys a lot. Let me hear what you have to say. Do you think they should do PTSs? Do you think they should just drop the content and walk away? Or do you think they need to find a way to continue to organically pull in the community of gamers in their process? Talk to you guys in another video. Peace out.